Welcome back, everybody, to the Reinvent Yourself podcast, Discovering Your Higher Purpose. I am your host, Andres Ruiz. And today we have another one of our authors that was part of the first book, Reinvent Yourself Stories of Transformation. And that is Pastor Jon McLane, who I've had the privilege of knowing for, God, like uh, quite a few years. I would want to say like 7, 8
Since
years.
I feel like since 2015, 2016. So yeah, just
Oh
short
wait,
of a decade.
my goodness. Yeah. So it's
hmm
it's been a minute, man. And I know that uh I've seen your journey from kind of like not the start, but I've kind of seen you kind of like your story when I met you and just all the things that you've done. I'm really, proud of you and it's a great story. And I mean, I'm looking at the book right here, and you wrote a great story, and it's called Building Bridges, Not Walls. But kind of like before we get into it, tell us briefly, who you are and what you do.
Yeah. I mean, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard for me to tell my story a lot without including you in that because you've been here for such a long time. You've seen me go from relatively, just having an apartment, to, one step away from having a backpack full of property to where I'm at now. And we'll discuss that. But yeah, I'm Iraq war veteran. I'm the son of two veterans as well. Lived here in Tucson for over 20 years. I joined the Army here in Tucson. Been a business owner here in Tucson most of my life, and now I find myself blessed and fortunate enough to run a nonprofit that helps locate and connect homeless veterans with housing. And then, you and I also have done radio shows together, and then we've done a TV show. So it's been a wild adventure going from being in the military, being an entrepreneur, experiencing what it's like to be homeless to now, being what, I would consider to be successful, particularly
Oh,
since I'm
yeah,
able to serve God in a way that fits me.
absolutely. No, yeah, I totally agree, man. And it's just definitely been something that has been out of like like a movie or a book, which we're actually we already have a book, you already have a movie, you have a radio show, so you've been definitely telling your story on all kinds of platforms. But like to kind of get things started, tell us about the challenge that you faced when it came to you yourself being homeless. Like tell us like from the beginning, like what was that challenge that you faced?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the question that I'm asked a lot, especially working with the homeless population now, is like, how do people become homeless? Like,
Yeah,
what is it
yeah,
the average thing? Like, how does someone become homeless? And like with my situation, it's like a car accident. How does a car accident happen? And certainly with my situation, in its own isolation, going through a divorce, going through kind of a lot of just pressures and a lot of stresses from life, it
hmm
it seemed like, homelessness was the best option at the time to kind of regroup and get things together. So that mixed with I was in the middle of an activist protest movement called Occupy Wall Street that gave me a sense of purpose within, being lost in society or within my family. So it was, that's my story, in a nutshell. But certainly, if you were to ask probably every single person who's ever experienced homeless, you're going to hear a different story as a happenstance from that. But certainly, like you said about, since you've known me, even before you knew me, it's like a movie because even though looking back on it, I certainly had some mental health stuff that thankfully I've gotten addressed. Some really magnificent stuff came out of this lostness and this what seems like the most abysmal thing that could possibly happen in being homeless.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, based on like those experiences that you had of homelessness and all these challenges that you had, what would you say were like your biggest like struggles? Let's say like, obstacles, difficulties. Tell us about that.
I think the big the and again kind of to speak to the uniqueness of my experience in being homeless versus just anybody else's and theirs versus mine was once I got into activism and got into the protest movement where it was staying in a tent in the park in downtown Tucson and living among, hundreds of other people. Um, what seemed like I didn't have even an inkling of an idea that I was homeless at the time, even though I was. But then once the police started coming and started arresting us, and we started feeling the same level of displacement that the unhoused and the homeless population have felt for decades, um, that again, it kind of speaks to that sense of purpose where it was what was I going to stick up for myself? And even beyond that, was I going to stick up for other people that I felt were being mistreated? And then once I made that choice that yes, I was going to stick up for myself, it was pretty much taking on a challenge of living on the street or continuously get arrested, continuously do these things that needed to be done till the laws were changed that made it so, at least in the city of Tucson, it wasn't a crime to be homeless anymore.
Yeah. So it almost felt like you were not doing it for yourself. You were doing it for like something higher than yourself, which was the people, uh being a person of service to those who you saw suffering.
Absolutely. And I think it's much like when I joined the army, the idea was I was trying to serve my country, to serve, like you're saying, to serve something greater than myself. And once I saw not only this issue within the city or even the United States that there's a section of the population that were being mistreated, um, I saw that I had a unique skill set that could actually address that issue in a semi-permanent way.
Yeah. Like, and then, you went through all these challenges. Like, when would you say was like that turning point when you said it just clicked that you were just like, okay, I got to do something, or I got to get out of this, or what happened? Was it just one day you just woke up and you said, okay, I'm stopping this, or what exactly made you make a change?
Um, Definitely it was over years and years of just doing it. A lot of things came into play. Like, for example, just the filing of, I got the baby crying in the backwards. Got the
It's all
filing
good.
of,
Hey, this is real stuff, man. I like this. Hey, this is natural. We're not,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's all
yeah.
good. I like
We
babies
got
crying.
the filing of the lawsuit, was, that set a lot of in motion, the setting up so many different homeless encampments and so many different organizations, like sent things in motion. And I think ultimately what just put my back against the wall, other than the settling of the lawsuit with the city of the Tucson and getting a lot of the things that I wanted from that settlement, was getting arrested and like really having to deal with the consequences of possibly having to go to jail for a really long time versus just tickets and getting, little little slap on the wrist stuff that I had to deal with up to that point.
Mm, yeah. So it just sounds like, you had a moment where you started to realize if I keep this going, it might end me, I might end up somewhere where I could be put away for a while, and like you're gonna be missing out on what's out here. And if I were to ask you, like, when you think about like, man, if I get put away, what were the thoughts that you were having thinking about, man, if I get put away, like this is what I'm gonna be missing out on, or what were your thoughts about that?
I think that the most perplexing thing about in that time period when I was kind of like I'd already made bail and I was waiting, kind of going through the court process and considering the reality that I may have to spend 35 years in prison,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
it put into perspective that the value of my convictions, particularly as much as I didn't like the way that people were being treated, or I didn't like this law, or I didn't like this thing, um, I had to choose my battles,
Mm,
and definitely, and I also had to figure out, what was going on with my approach. I mean, there was a pastor that I discipled under. His name was Pastor Dave Ferrari, and he always used to tell me, John, you're a great leader. You really are. You'll be an even better leader once you start doing the right things for the right reason. Because you
mm,
could do the right things, but if you're doing them for the wrong reason, it's not going to work out. You can do the wrong things, and if you're doing them for the right reason, it's not going to work out. So that's
mm,
definitely what I've learned through this all is just how to do the right thing and to do it for the right reason. And I think that's where ultimately where, and you've seen it kind of in my approach as my friend through the years, where you saw me probably pretty cynical when we first started being friends, and like there was a fight around every corner that I was ready to pick and ready to sue anybody necessary. Where now I see us all as children of God, and we're all just trying to figure it out, and God willing, I'll be able to be a bridge to getting us where we need to get, rather than being um, a barrier to those things. So that's certainly, I think, the biggest blessing that I've gotten out of all of this is I don't now see everybody as a nemesis. I see them as a possible ally. It's just a matter of figuring out how do we find those alliances.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And so, I mean, it sounds like you learned a lesson of, like you said, stop looking at things in a negative way, that, these people might be trying to do something to you or hurt you, not physically, maybe physically, but also in a mental way or just like emotional way, where they were causing those emotions to show up because of what they were saying or what they were doing. But now you started to look at it differently, looking at it like this, like saying, hey, maybe this person can be an ally, maybe this person can be my friend. How can I come together with this person and come to an agreement where we can make things better in our community?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for you, like, based on what you're doing now, I mean, what is next for you? I mean, I know I've seen what's next for you, but just let the audience know like what you've been up to, what you've been doing, maybe even talk a little bit about the march that you just recently did, so that people can kind of get an idea of the work that you're doing now as opposed to what you used to.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's just been such a blessing. I mean, you've been able to see it, particularly you and I meeting at Bravo Base Camp Conklin, which was a homeless veteran camp that slept 100 people, and you were there when I created Veteran Rescue Mission initially, and you and a group of kids you brought out there once a month helped clean up that place and get it from being kind of the community dump sites, and now a 9 bedroom among two mobile homes, and we have 6 tiny homes on the property that you and the group have helped build. And over the years, ever since 2015, when we started the property, we've had over 600 veterans that have lived at the property that, we've sheltered, we've got connected, got them their birth certificates, social security cards, their IDs, got them connected with jobs, with medical care. Some that we've even got as far into assisted living, almost all 600 of them we've got into housing. So a big part of what our program is we locate homeless veterans and then we try to get them Section 8 vouchers or vouchers that are similar to that so they can ostensibly have free housing until they can afford otherwise. And a pillar of what we do every year, this will be the 15th year that I've done it, is I personally lead a group of people. Sometimes I do it by myself, but usually it's a group of people, and we go live on the street. Sometimes as long as a month. This year, I just probably I think 3 weeks ago, we did it for 3 days, and usually we set up in front of a downtown park or the downtown library, and you've got to see that, so many different renditions
Yeah.
of that over the year, where it's
Yep.
just like during the day, we set up tables and chairs and shelves, and we have people hanging out there giving out need items and letting the homeless population know where the services are. And then if we find any veterans, we try to get them back to our property so we can continue to get them services. And then at night, I sleep out there with a group of people, and we have cots set up and we have sleeping bags and blankets. And the idea is we want to be there 24 hours a day, as long as we possibly can, to be where people are at when they're ready so we can get them to the shelters, we can get them the information they need, and kind of be a triage for them. And this year and last year we did something a little bit different, just because one, whenever we set up in one location, the government's usually not a very big fan of that for a plethora of reasons. And then two, the idea for me, especially being a pastor and trying to be a literal follower of Christ the best that I possibly can, is I was pondering on the idea of when Jesus left his home, when he left his mother and his father and the comfort of his community and his resources. And, what was that like? Like, how terrifying is that? How scary is that to leave everything that you know and to go out on the calling that from your father, our father, and do and serve people? So it felt like the only way to do that was with what we're now calling the Marchathon to the VA, where I leave from Veteran Rescue Mission, which is on the northwest part of Tucson, and I walk through Tucson over 20 miles. Last year, I believe it was 25 miles. This year, it was 35 miles with a group of housed people with all different groups. The different groups were Tucson Women's Center, the Heroes Breakfast, the um, Republic. I actually kind of I sad to miss a whole bunch of people that were there that I'm not mentioning, but we had a whole bunch of groups, 22 people in all that were helping organize the event, and it was intense. My son was there. He's 17. He was there marching 35 miles. The first night we camped out and lived in tents, and it was cold. And the second night, we stayed inside a church in the traditional shelter experience, and it was uncomfortable sleeping in a room with a whole bunch of other people. But by the grace of God, that third day, we made it to the VA, completely exhausted and beat, ready to get home. And definitely, once I got home, I was as grateful as one could possibly be with just all the blessings that I've been given. So yeah, it's super cool to be able to do this type of work and be able to help people. But certainly, like you're saying, I still want to do so much more, and we certainly have a lot of plans cooking, um, but certainly doing what we're doing now is certainly a big part of the future plans as well.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing that. And it just sounds like what you're saying, there's so much purpose there. And I think that right now, the reason why a lot of people suffer is because they don't have a purpose. They don't have something to look forward to. They don't wake up excited. for those people out there to kind of close this out, what advice would you give to somebody, if you could give us like a tip or two or three around somebody who's just struggling to find purpose or to find something that they enjoy doing for others or serving others or just doing something that they love? What kind of advice would you give them?
Definitely the first one, just as I kind of go to do it, would be meditation.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people spend a lot of time distracted and running away from their own thoughts and just their own self, where the more you spend time with yourself, kind of the more you understand what best serves you and where you're called to. And I think personally within meditation is a good way to hear God speak,
Yep.
where otherwise it's music or it's TV or it's conversations, etc. So um, that's very helpful. And then also just the thought on it, which I think kind of is meditation in itself of like, where does God, where with all your talents that you've been given in the world, how can you best use them to serve us? Not
Yep.
just you. You'll be served. Don't worry. I guarantee it. I am a testament of it. But how can you serve the community as a whole with the talents that's God's given you? Because they're unique to you, just like the story of how someone becomes homeless is unique to them. So that's definitely where it's at, where it's, take and those talents you have. And I mean, we're both, a great testament of that. With the talents we have, we are trying to figure out how can we best serve humanity with those talents. And funny enough, that's a very selfish way to be, but it's the right type of selfish.
Mm. There you go. Absolutely. Good stuff, man. Yeah. Well, John, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show and also for being a part of this book here, Reinvent Yourself, Stories of Transformation. You see, John is right there, right next to me, right there. Boom. And there you go, like same person, there you go. Yeah, so just truly grateful for your time, John, and also for you sharing your story in this book. And for those who are listening, if you are interested in being an author yourself and would like to write a chapter on this one of these books, I'm still looking for authors. So if you want to reach out, send an email at ibelievecal@gmail.com, or you can send me a text at 520-392-9179 and we can get you set up. I'll give you all the details. But other than that, thank you again, John, and thank you, the listener. And I hope that this served you to help you discover your higher purpose. Have a great day. Peace.
God bless.